District Board of Trustees meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. And we are going to call the board workshop to order at 6 p.m. And this is agenda item number 1, roundtable discussion among board members and staff addressing the following topic for discussion only. No action will be taken. Presentation and discussion regarding federal, state, and local grant funding in the Carson City School District. And I believe we have Mr. Spencer Winward, Ms. Cassie Clark. Welcome.
Sure. All righty. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This is a kind of in response to the inquiry that you guys as a board made to find out a little bit more about some of the separate funds. And so that's why we're having this workshop, is to provide a little bit more in-depth information than we typically do. And we intend to do that for 4 separate funds. And to talk a little bit about a grants program. If you recall, a couple months ago, we did talk a little bit about grants, and we highlighted each the positions that were coming from which grants. So this will kind of pick up where we left off with that discussion. And as it is a roundtable discussion, we welcome questions anytime throughout. So we'll go ahead and start with Cassie here to kind of explain a little bit about what she's been doing lately to procure new grants, and some of the stuff that she's been doing is she's developed that to a greater level than where we've been in the previous.
Yeah, so I have been searching for grants and trying to expand where we can find grants, because from what I've gathered, we've had from grants in the past, it's mostly title grants, grants that are given to us like ESSER, where it flows through NDE. They kind of just give us an amount that they have predetermined on their end, and then we spend it. So I'm looking for stuff where we can branch out. And so I've looked through Candid, which is a nonprofit directory where you can search for all sorts of nonprofits, big, huge names. You can look at their 990s. You can see what they're giving to and how. I also have used Instrumental, which is more of like a nonprofit and corporate giving. So you can see where corporate foundations are giving their money, and then where also private foundations are giving their money. We also have a resource from the Office of Federal Assistance from the governor's office called NAVA-Grants, and it's pretty much grants.gov, but a little bit easier to use and better for searching and saving your searches. And then there's also GrantStation, which is more of a corporate search, I would say. You can find foundations on there, but it's better for corporations. So I have put together lists for teachers to go after where you can find smaller grants, things that they can go for if they are looking to plant trees or things for their classroom. It is on our website where they can kind of search that and see what is available for what they can go for. We have expanded, and I have applied for the Congressional Senator's Grant, and we focused that grant application on mental health, which they have given funding to in the past to other school districts. We haven't heard back from them, but we should soon. I'm assuming it's probably tied up with the big bill that's going through the Senate right now. We also applied for the Community Mental Health Services Block Grant, and I worked with Christina Stapien to determine what that program kind of needs and how we can get that funded. And that's through the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services. We've gone for McKinney-Vento, and we had an increase from our prior cycle of $20,000 more. We've also gone for a couple Nevada agriculture grants, and we were awarded one for our greenhouse. We are going to leverage our Carson City School Foundation 501c3 status. So I did help them get the Vera Foundation grant, and that was $25,000 for the AP testing. And then I've just been helping other people in the district. So the McKinney-Vento, she's going for Nevada Power or Nevada Energy and trying to get funding for that program because they like to give to people that are facing homelessness, and that's what McKinney-Vento is. And so we've just been a resource for the district as well, for teachers or for administrators as well, so.
Great. Questions?
Yes, yeah, thank you. And thank you, Spencer, for bringing this forward as well and going over. I think we, as board members, can benefit, knowing what the future is going to look like when it comes to budgeting. And it helps us kind of understand the budget as a whole. I think this will be very informative. So yes, thank you for bringing this forward. So the first question I have is the different color codings. Some of them are in blue, some of them are in green. What is the different color codings?
That was the secret of like the presentation was going to happen in like 20 minutes, but if we want to skip to that, we can. So
Oh, you're going to go through?
yeah,
Oh,
we'll go
yeah.
through these. So,
Oh, sorry. I thought, yep, I'll wait.
but that is a great question. We will address it, I promise.
Yeah.
So did you have any specific questions for Cassie?
Yeah, about.
Okay. I just have to brag about her a little bit. She's done a wonderful job. The greenhouse grant that she procured, that's slightly over $60,000 of money that just wasn't available to us, wasn't going to show up on our doorstep. So she's done great to go out and get that. She's working on another one. I forget the name for safety services for the.
Yeah, the COPS grant. So it's School Violence Prevention Program. And so we're asking, our buildings are brick and cement, and emergency public radios don't work in our buildings very well. And so we're asking for funding for antennas to help them work in our buildings, which is a big safety gap. So, yeah, and it's a very, very expense. So,
Yeah, we've been working to address that efficiency, but it is very expensive, and she's found this source, and in compilation with Ann's here to find some funding to be able to make that happen sooner than we could if we didn't have grant funding available. So
yeah.
I was wondering on the COPS grant, do we get any money from the COPS grant now for the school resource officers? Or is there any way to pursue that?
this one, I believe, is specific to infrastructure. So the repeaters, radios, getting a dedicated emergency services channel for the school district, so that all of our sites can communicate. It would really help if, we always have those what if scenarios on if we have a widespread community issue where we need to talk from between schools and schools. That would be very difficult to do at this point. And with some of this grant fund available, we'd be able to bring that up to where all of our sites and transportation will be able to be in communication with each other without relying on cell phones in the event that that's not working during whichever emergency may present itself. So another great source that has happened, and she brings a lot of experience from the corporate and private side and has been searching for avenues there that ordinarily school districts haven't gone after in the past. So she's done a lot of great work for us. So, all right. Kind of for probably the remainder of our time, I've got in front of you these 10 pages are a synopsis of each of the grants that we currently have, and they are color-coded. So the blue are state grants. So very few of those, as the PCFP kind of did away with a lot of those grants, but there are a few still around. Green are federal sourced, and then the yellow are private grants. And so as we kind of go through this, that just kind of gives you can quickly glance and see how many grants we have of each of those sources and what they do. And then if you look to the right-hand side of that, there's two columns. We have the amount that is budgeted for FY25. As we're wrapping up that year, we felt like those are pretty good numbers to give you an idea of what we typically see from these grants. And then we have FY26, and there's a lot of different things going on in the FY26 column. So on that very first page over to the right, there's kind of a little key that describes what you may see. One of the most important things, any that's in red text, is amount that we're expecting, we're anticipating to receive, but we actually have not received that. And that, we feel pretty confident to put those numbers here. If we didn't expect to receive those, we wouldn't show those numbers here, but they're in red just to show you that that's not necessarily set in stone at this point. We're feeling pretty comfortable about it, especially grants that we've had for several years. We kind of know how they'll work, but the amount, that very first one, the pre-K, for example, that's 1.3 million, that amount may be slightly more, slightly less when it's all said and done. The other two items in that kind of key there, up next to the FY26 budget of each grant funding source, there will be one asterisk in green or two in blue. The green asterisks are funds from FY25. They run on the federal fiscal year, meaning they can be spent up till September 30th. In some of these cases, we'll have funds for FY25 we spend through the September 30th, and we haven't received or don't know what our FY26 funding will be yet. So that's what those two different descriptions there are, to kind of let you know what we may have. And again, those are the kind of things that we've built a picture based off of much information we have, but it's not all set in stone, and some of it gets finalized February, March of the year before we finally say, oh, the 1.3 million you said we were going to get, we're actually going to get. So it's lots of fun trying to manage this kind of piece, and we have great people like Cassie and her team that stay on top of it and make sure that all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed so that we don't get our hands slapped for doing things the incorrect way. So to kind of talk through the state grants, in the description, it's pretty explanatory what we have in each one of those. So the first one is pre-K, and there's a lot of talk this legislative session of whether that would be expanded or not. As far as I know, it's going to look very similar for the upcoming years as what it was the previous year. So out of that grant, we do have 8 classroom teachers for pre-K and 8 parapros that are funded from that.
Quick question on that. Do we anticipate enrollment at pre-K increasing or decreasing? Just a question, since it's going to be staying the same, or
Yeah.
is that too hard
My
to tell?
crystal ball is in my bag, so I can't consult it to see. We have some studies done that kind of look at the birth rate to kind of see, hey, we're going to see years of fairly steady enrollment, or we're expecting a dip because 4 years ago the birth rate was considerably lower. So it gives us a little bit. We do those about every 5 or 10 years. That gives us a little bit of an outlook, but it's really, there's just a lot that we don't know until we do the Ready to Rock Kinder program and get a lot of people, of those kids enrolled. And
If I could add to that too, so the number of classrooms we're expecting to have for next year is the same.
The same.
At this point, yeah. We're waiting. There were some changes in the rules. We understand in terms of eligibility potentially, because it was very restrictive to a certain income level and some other considerations. But our understanding is that some of those have been eased a bit. But we haven't gotten guidance from Department of Ed on what those final rules are and how to apply them. And potentially NDE is looking to, I guess, potentially start their own like pre-K application system, which I'm not that familiar with what that might be, but in the bigger picture, the number of classrooms we're expecting to run are the same.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. So thank you, Mr. Fueling. One of the other things, so again, you can see we have salary and benefits broken out, and those following all of our funds, it's 80 to 85% of all of our expenditures across the district. So some of these grants will be even more heavy because they're restricted to only be used for salary and benefits. So this previous year, 1.2 million for salary, salary and benefits combined. And then you'll see professional services. These are usually contracted services. In this particular case, it's QRIS, which is a pre-K rating system that we're required to have. That costs about $20,000 per year. And so that's paid for out of this grant. And then the third section would be materials and supplies. And those amounts you'll see kind of a lot of times that's kind of, okay, we've satisfied all the needs we have for salary and benefits and any contracted services that we need. What do we have left over for salaries and supplies? That number can kind of go up and down based off of what we have available. Because like I say, if it ends up being September, November when these numbers are finalized, at that point, it's really difficult to remove the personnel to run a classroom, but we can fluctuate the supplies funds that are available and may need to supplement those from the general fund. And then the final section in that first grant is dues and fees. And in this particular case, they pay for some family passes for Children's Museum and entrance fees there, and also for pre-K field trips. Any questions about that grant?
question I have, but it's going to be, I think, for all of the grants. So when there is a salary and benefits positions within the grants, is it your practice then to literally make 100% of that grant pay for that position? Or do we, maybe partially pay for it with the grant and then partially pay for it with general funds?
We do have some instances where we split fund or braid funding. Just for ease of practice, if we can cover a position entirely from a grant, it's just so much easier from an accounting standpoint and keeping track of things. But we have some cases where there's a lot of talk with the SB 231 being rolled out of the general or rolled into the general fund from the special revenue fund where it resides. And that might have caused some scenarios to where all of a sudden we have a 4% increase of cost of salary and benefits, and grants might not cover that. So then that's where we could adjust supplies and keep those salaries and benefits whole, or we'd look at doing a split funding
Okay.
scenario.
And then this would apply to all the grants as well. Matching funds, the grants that require the matching, whether it be 15%, whatever the case may be. Do the matching funds come out of the general fund?
Typically, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Some.
And then if any time, I'm, out of curiosity, it's not in here, but maybe I'll follow up with an email just to kind of get that amount of what amount we put towards matching funds from what is taken from the general fund to match these grants.
Yeah, for the most part of the federal and state grants, there's not matching requirements. Typically, the largest one we see are capital projects. NV Energy will have some programs where they have some funding available, and there'd be a requirement. Or federal E-rate program, which is separate from these funds, has a matching requirement. They've updated that to where now we actually don't have to spend our portion to get the matching amount. We're just invoiced what our portion would be, and it's much cleaner than it has been over the previous years. So there's not a lot of matching funds, particularly in the federal state grants that are education-based.
And I know that the COPS SVPP grant that Cassie just mentioned, that one I think has a 25% match if we get it.
Yeah, that's 25.
But again, it's more capital intensive type.
Yeah, but there are options like OFA does have a federal match program where like you can ask for a grant for that funding so that we wouldn't have to.
I understand too, there's foundations out there that will, that you can apply for that will take care of the match of some of these fundings, yeah.
Yeah, so not necessarily it has to come from the general fund, especially where a lot of those are capital project based. It could come from those other funds, and we do look to see if there's some other sources to partner together.
And some matches can be like in kind, like if SVP allowed it, Ansier's salary could be applied towards that match. It's not applicable for that one. It has to be cash, but in some cases, matches can be in kind of.
Yeah, if our personnel provided labor to install something that came from the grant, that could count towards matching in kind on the cases where that's allowed. All righty. Second state grant is ECLIP. And this is a little bit of a smaller grant. The one thing I'll just really kind of point out is we had that available in FY25. We do not for FY26. We only had one position in there, and we need to find different home funding for that, and then extra hours for Kinder Rocks. So Ms. Greener has done a great job of reallocating some of the resources to get those covered.
Spencer, excuse me, on that, did you say you can try to find extra funding to keep that position, or would that position be cut?
Not extra, but alternative funding.
And the alternative funding would be out of the general fund?
A different grant source, ideally, is what we'd initially look for. I would have to look and see the specific position to see where it resides now. I apologize, I don't have that off the top of my head. And I take that back. This one is actually one that is this the vacancy? It was not filled for FY25.
Okay,
So there was no one in that position for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Which makes it easier to.
It was not filled, did you say? Sorry.
Yeah, it was not filled for the entirety of FY25.
Okay.
Yeah. I won't spend a whole lot of time on that E-clip where it doesn't really apply to FY26, but you can see what we had in FY25 there to kind of get an idea of that's what was available to us that we don't have access to this year. The next grant is CTE allocation, and these are very specific. Again, with all the grants, we receive these funds and they come with instructions on how we can spend them, and we can kind of ask and modify a little bit, but for the most part, they're like, these funds are available for this. So a lot of times, for example, we couldn't take CTE funds and fund that pre-K TOSA position. That just wouldn't be allowed. So we have some salary costs, and this is mostly for professional development, and then, or excuse me, there's no salary costs. So we have some teacher costs for professional development, and then travel for student costs to CTESO events and competitions. A lot of materials are purchased out of this grant. Helps with the, those hands-on classes that have some consumable materials. This helps quite a bit in being able to provide those for us. And continuing on the next page, you'll see there's some testing for health science programs. That's something that we didn't have this past year, but we'll be covering in FY26. And then also some additional materials and supplies that we didn't have funding for this year. We have some available of that for upcoming FY26. That is it for state grants. There just are not a lot now, where most of those have been incorporated in the PCFP funding plan. So that is all of them, which I will say I'm a fan of not having 70 different state grants to keep track of. All right, so federal grants, you have a lot of these. We'll kind of go through a couple of these. We have some that are not very big. And the very first one is Farm to Schools. You can see that was really a $4,000 grant for FY25. We've been awarded some additional money there. That sometimes can be based off of funding available, based off of the good work that our grants department has done to justify our additional need for some funding. But you'll see that we're getting just shy of $60,000 for that for FY26. Going to be some professional development for agriculture teachers, some construction to cover some assembly of the greenhouse that was funded through the other grant we talked about earlier, and then some supplies to kind of get the ag programs going, particularly in the middle schools, and some additional equipment there. Tough shed, and then is this the one the greenhouse is in? Yeah, it is. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize we had that one written down.
And it shows 25 and 26 because it has like a 27-month cycle, so it doesn't expire until 9/30/26. Yeah, so.
So I did see the greenhouse get unloaded by forklift about a week ago, so it's on the premises. That might make Miss Fuson really happy. She was hoping to be able to walk through it before she left. Next grant is Title 1D, and this is funding for Department of Corrections. So, and again, about once a week or more, I learn a new acronym in the education world. So also about once a week, I forget a new one. I learned YOP was one that I learned yesterday and already forgot. So youthful offenders, something. So it sounds like some of you know that, but that covers one full-time position for a YOP teacher, and then some travel for them to attend a GED-related event, and then also some supplies and equipment. And you can see where that's lower in FY26 than FY23. That's one of those where those supplies can kind of fluctuate based on what we have available. And sometimes there might be a greater need where we're able to purchase some larger supplies that last for 2 or 3 years.
And I'll just clarify the youthful offenders program. So those are at Northern Nevada Correctional, basically 16 and I think mostly 16 and 17-year-olds that have been adjudicated as adults. So they're kept separate from the general population, right? So we have a separate teacher for them. And that was a new program as of 2 years ago. That just over the past 2 years that came on.
On this grant, I see that looks like next year the salary and benefits have been reduced considerably. Am I reading that right? From
So they have, this
134?
would be our first example of the green asterisk. So if you refer back to the first page, the green asterisk means there's funds from FY '25 that don't expire till September 30th.
Oh, okay.
That's what's going to be delineated there. We anticipate getting FY '26 funds, but until we know what those are, we don't include those. So if we had a pretty good idea, it would be in the red font, where we don't have a really good idea, but we still anticipate it. It has that green asterisk. So this is really, that's kind of the remainder of the FY '25 funds that can be spent up through September 30th. And then we anticipate getting funding similar to FY '25 to go throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, that was my fault. I heard you say that earlier, Nate.
That is a really small green asterisk. So if you didn't see it on the first time around, don't feel bad.
I would just say too, I think it's one of the great frustrations on our side is, you know, you're trying to keep consistent programming, but the timing and awarding of funding doesn't always align. So truly, we are kind of making some decisions not knowing with certainty. There's imperfect information with some of this stuff. And in varying ways with funds crossing multiple years that we have to continue to track. So it gets very complicated, I would say, just trying to manage all this and stay on top of what we think is going to be happening.
Just a couple questions. So that helps those youth get their GED? Is that what that program is?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know about how many that we have go through that?
How many students?
So last school year, I think they had 15. I think it was 15.
And they all completed? Like, is it pretty successful?
That I don't
Okay.
know. I can talk to Mr. Chambers. That's under Mr. Chambers' purview. He would know. I think some of them, I think just still because they were so young, it didn't happen as quickly for
Sure,
them,
sure.
but
Is it
it's
an
still-
opt-in kind of thing? Do they have the choice, or
I
how does that?
don't think they have a choice,
Oh, okay.
actually. That's a good question too. I'm not positive.
Yes, I think it's if they're under 18 and incarcerated, then they do have to participate until they're 18.
Right.
So
Well, I'm glad there's something for them.
Spencer, just so that I'm clear, so that 134 is for one teacher?
salary and benefits.
Okay.
So that would be like a similar to a topped out, somewhere on the upper end of our salary scale would be closer to that.
Okay.
So we only have 4 minutes left. So just kind of looking at this, I think I'm going to just jump ahead, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Kind of looking, okay, so a
That's
couple
fine.
questions that I have. So every grant comes with indirect costs. And then, so where do those indirect costs then, where do we allocate those?
Yeah, not all of them. That essentially kind of covers some of our office overhead, our
Okay.
grants department that's managing all of these, our fiscal department that's handling transactions for grants. So rather than us having to track and say, you know what, our pay bill specialist spent 7% of her time on this grant, we're just able to apply those indirect costs for the grants that do allow it. Not all do allow it, but
Right.
if we are able to, and that's another one of those that if there's funding available, then we'll claim that. If there's not, we'd rather that go to supplies or to a direct cost if possible, but in cases where that's not all necessarily easy to do, we're able to claim some of that through indirect cost.
Okay, so then looking at federal Title 1A, I see that there's 100% full-time, 50% full-time costs, 25% and 100. So then to fulfill the 100%, is that funding coming out of the general fund? I'm on page 3.
It depends. So the McKinney-Vento liaison, half of it comes from McKinney-Vento, and then half of it comes from Title 1A. So it really depends on the position. But usually it's braided funded with another grant.
All right. And then taking a look, because we only have now 2 minutes, or I've got 20 seconds. Question is, if we were to say to you next year that absolutely zero funding for grants can come out of the general fund because we don't want to do any deficit spending, what would you do? How would you be able to do that?
I don't know the exact number of what that works out to, but that just ends up being a part of the larger calculus of where else potentially could we fund people out of? Or, I mean, it's complicated. There's 22 funds and 1,000 employees, so there's lots of different ways to try and make it happen.
So unfortunately, we ran out of time. May I suggest that we reach out to you guys? Is that okay? Can we reach out to you for any questions that we may have?
Certainly.
Okay,
We'll happily share any questions you have. We'll share a response with the entire board so
that
that
would be
everyone
good.
can.
Thank you. Thank you guys very
How about
much.
that?
We appreciate that. Time flies when you're having fun. All right. So, so we are going to call board meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. And I need to inform everyone that Mike Walker will be joining us by phone. And we have a couple of trustees that are absent, Trustee Peterson and Trustee Clapham, and they are both excused. Okay. So we're going to continue with agenda item number 2, adoption of the agenda as submitted, and this is for possible action.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Trustee Varner and second by Trustee Wall. Any board discussion? See none. Any public comment? See none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3, flag salute. If you can please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Agenda item number 4. You good? Did we get a call from Trustee Walker? Not yet? Okay, by the way, I need to disclose too that we do have a quorum. Even though we have 2 trustees absent and 1 should be calling in a minute, we still have a quorum. So we'll pass it on. Okay. All right. Agenda item number 4, Superintendent's Report, and this is for information only. Superintendent Feeling?
Thank you, President Ramirez. Well, the schools are rather empty at this point, but making rounds around the district, there's a lot happening in terms of rooms being cleaned out, and our custodians are just tearing things up, trying to clean things as we get through started here in the summer. Some of our capital projects have begun, so that's been good to see. The ticketing booth gate over at Carson High School. We had the official ribbon cutting for that. It was just a fantastic event. I think there were at least 50 people there, to probably closer to 75 people there to be a part of that, and just a huge thank you to Carson City Chamber of Commerce and the leadership class of 2025 for making that project happen. I know it took extraordinary effort. I think some people's real life jobs, the job descriptions got changed because they were working so often on trying to help make that happen. But it is just a beautiful setup now, so I'm just very grateful for that. Otherwise, the only item I had, we're going to be sending out an email to you all for next year. One of the things I talked with President Ramirez a couple months back is trying to start regular, like, I don't know, quarterly, but 3 times a year meetings with each individual board member, just to have an opportunity to chat and talk about things going on. So there'll be an email going out soon, just trying to set up some of those times with you through the year so you can calendar them out for yourself.
That's nice. Thank you.
Oh, sure. And yeah, I'm done, sorry. And then trustee Walker's
That's okay.
jumping on here.
So it sounds like trustee Walker is about to join us by phone.
Hey, Mike, it's AJ. You ready? Okay, I'll put you on speakerphone. All right. Can you hear us, Mike?
I could hear you.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, how's it going tonight?
Good. Go ahead. You're good? You're done? Okay, very good. All right. Thank you, Superintendent Feeling. Agenda item number 5, association reports, and this is for discussion only. Do we have a member from the association? No reports, okay. Let's see, agenda item number 6, public comment. Do we have in-person public comment? I see none, and we don't have online public comment, so I will skip that section, and I will close at this point the public comment section, or the agenda item rather. Agenda item number 7, presentation and possible action to approve the renewal of property/casualty insurance package with Nevada Public Agency Insurance Pool for a total program cost, including all pool services, not to exceed $959,633.21. Self-insurance
President
bond.
Ramirez. Oh, never mind.
Sorry?
No.
Am I?
We're good to go.
Okay, I'm good to go. Okay, I can continue? How about if I start over again? Okay, let's try this again. Agenda item number 7, presentation and possible action to approve the renewal of property/casualty insurance package with Nevada Public Agency Insurance Pool for a total program cost, including all pool services, not to exceed $959,633.21, self-insurance bond in an amount not to exceed $5,400, and excess workers' compensation policy with Star Insurance Company in an amount not to exceed $78,500 for July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026 as budgeted, and this is for possible action. We have Ann Sear and Mr. Spencer Windward and Mr. Ryan Garaventa and Mr. Wayne Carlson.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to make note that Ann Sear is joining us via phone.
Via phone, that's correct, okay.
And again, we have Mr. Garaventa and Mr. Carlson here, who do some wonderful work for us on the insurance side of things for the school district. I don't know if you guys would like some time to present, or I can kind of give you my skinny rundown for the financial side of things, unless that'd be stealing your thunder.
Hi, everybody. Good to see some familiar faces. Thanks for having us out again. I'm happy to do whatever you want to do. I apologize. We were waiting out in the hall and almost missed the meeting. Glad we made it in.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you. I can give just kind of a quick climate of the insurance industry. I think Wayne can give kind of a quick run through of the program highlights this year, if you'd like. If everybody's agreeable to that, and we can get going and move on. Sure.
I'll fill in any blanks they miss.
Perfect, please do. First off, I just wanted to say thank you. The team at the district is really phenomenal to work with. They make our life and our job easy by doing their part and keeping up their portion of the work. So thanks to everybody. Appreciate it. Briefly, and I think this is important because it's going to demonstrate the hard work that Wayne and his team at the pool have done. Insurance climate overall in Northern Nevada. Property due to predictive fire mapping is skyrocketing. Auto rates, commercial auto, personal auto in Northern Nevada are skyrocketing. Umbrellas are getting harder to find, limits are harder to attain. And the abuse and molestation component, that's a very important component of the policy, carriers are writing less and less limits, if at all, and that's getting to be harder to find as well, which is probably the most important portion of this policy. And so knowing that climate and kind of the dicey area that we're in, I think it speaks volumes to the hard work that the pool has done year after year, but especially this year, to even come in with lower rates than last year on the property and the auto, et cetera. Yeah, it's just a really, really wonderful job that they've done, and I don't want to steal Wayne's thunder either. He can tell you kind of how we got from point A to point B, but I want to give you just a high level kind of overall what somebody in the open market is dealing with versus what a pool member is getting the benefits of. And so thank you for having us out here. Again, we're always happy to put this together for you. It's always good to see you guys. And I'll let Wayne give his portion of the work that he did for the pool overall. And if there's any questions, I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the self-insurance work comp program is still performing really well. It's doing everything that we've wanted it to do year after year. So that's a really good thing. We were able to secure a less expensive number with a 2-year rate guarantee on the reinsurance this year by going in a different direction, same broker, different company. But that continues to perform really well. And so I'm happy to be able to present that and have brought that to you guys year after year. So thank you. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer at the end.
All right, thank you. Wayne Carlson, the Executive Director of the pool, for reference. You probably have this already in your packet.
Yes.
I'll touch on a couple of highlights. The property is a big part of the program, and we collectively, as the combined property values for all the members is over $5 billion. So we take that kind of size program to the market. And we've been in the Lloyd's market for just now our 21st year. And it's very important in that market to be there physically present. And so we send a team every year to negotiate with about 18 syndicates, which is in Lloyd's language is similar to an insurance company. And they all take a piece of the pie. And so we have built those long-term relationships. And so when the market's tough, they give us a better price than other clients might get. And when the market's soft, we don't push them down as much as other clients might want to do because we recognize that we have good years and bad years. And so the bad year that we had with the Wells earthquake, the 6.0 earthquake, caused $5 million in payouts from the market. They didn't adjust the rate upward. They took it in stride because we had many years of good profitability and we go forward. And after that, it continued to be profitable for them. So that's the value of that long-term relationship. Now, how it applies to you is, obviously you're priced based on the average rate for the group as a whole on property, less a deductible credit. You take a $50,000 deductible and we give you credit that reduces the rate for you on both property and liability. We were able to keep the $300 million per occurrence limit for property intact for all of our members. So if we have a multi-member loss at the same time, then $300 million would be the limit for all the members participating in it. So we model that to see if that's enough. And for risks like fire in a conflagration, as spread out as people are and as well constructed as buildings are in this area, you have a lot of values concentrated within the district and the city, but we still feel we have enough. Now, we're able to keep earthquake coverage, which is $150 million aggregate limit, and the same with flood, except Zone A, which is $25 million. Those, because those are considered catastrophe perils, But we're considered non-critical cat, as they put it. So even though Nevada is earthquake country, and I used to sit on the state earthquake council and hear the scientists, seismologists, and the geologists and all talk about all the earthquake risk, we're not number one. That goes to California. 1 and 2 go to California and Alaska. But we're not far behind. We compete, if you want to put it that way, with Hawaii. They beat us on total earthquakes. We beat them on large magnitude earthquakes. So we like to say we're fourth, which is better in the market. So, but we're able to keep those kind of limits, again, through modeling the concentration of risk and seeing if that's enough. And we wanted to make sure, and we built that limit up over the years, so we were able to retain that. Turning to liability, years ago, we were able to get the liability limits up to $10 million. And that was a major accomplishment. It happened at a time when the market was soft. And we've been able to maintain that even through hard times. And the liability market is a bit stressed now because we're having more law enforcement liability claims, which affects counties and cities. We're also having more sexual abuse and molestation claims, which affects all types of members, and especially schools are targets. So we've been able to hold the line and keep our sexual abuse sublimit at $2.5 million for several years now, when the markets in other areas have been dropping that limit down substantially or eliminating it altogether. And so we spend a lot of time and effort trying to mitigate those kinds of claims because they are very tragic and very expensive. The general claims for general liability, those rates seem to be fairly stable, like I said, except for law enforcement. So we monitor these things, and we again are collectively purchasing these limits with these markets, so they know we're a strong buyer and stable in the marketplace for them. The next is our cyber risk. We included cyber coverage, and this year we did a couple of changes. One is we rewrote the language of the cyber form to simplify it because there was confusion about all the subparts, sublimits. And so we thought, let's clean that up. So we made it basically a third-party liability limit of $1 million and then first-party events at $250,000. So that clarified how that will work. We also, because of losses, had to impose a deductible for the first time. We'd been doing it without a deductible on cyber, and this time it's 10% up to $25,000. So it's 10% of whatever the loss amount is up to $25,000. So that's a bit lower than your other deductible, but it's still an increase deductible. And then we've included at a very stable limits at price, environmental liability coverage. We've been able to keep that as a $2 million with a $25,000 deductible with an aggregate limit of $10 million. And this year the rates were slightly down, and so that was helpful. But that's again available for all members. And then for school districts, we've had accident medical, student accident coverage at a $25,000 limit with a $250 deductible to the family. That's not your deductible. But that has proven valuable. In fact, we originally had $10,000, and then there was an incident where a student was injured and the medical costs were closer to $40,000. The carrier helped negotiate that medical bill down, but the parents were out of pocket, but at least they got 10. And we thought, okay, we need to increase that limit, so we were able to do that. And so that limit's been at 25 for several years now. And again, that's another stable program, but it applies to all of your school trips, your school events, to protect the students if they have.
I do have a question on that. Does it also include incidents during practice?
At any participating school-sponsored event, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, it actually helped with students not having to have proof of their own insurance in order to play sports or to participate in something, a field trip or whatever, which was difficult for some families who didn't have insurance at all, for medical insurance. So we fund this so that that's not an issue in keeping them from participating in school activities. And then the next page gives you some of the complexity of the program and the structure. Within that first tower, the property tower on the left, there's a huge number of syndicates that break up pieces of that. But that just shows you that there's complexity in putting the program together, but it works because we've been doing it for a while. And then, of course, your program costs are $959, $633, and 21 cents, and that's all driven by what's on the chart on the next page, which is your exposures. So that drives some of it, and then your liability experience as well. And so you can see in this case, your percentage increase is 0.71%. You had a almost 13.5% payroll increase. Your total insured values went up slightly, 1.21%. Your vehicle count went up 5%. Your employees went down, and your student ADA went down, and your teachers went down. So all of those are balanced out to get to the final pricing, along with the claims experience. Then the rest of this kind of gives an outline of how the program is structured, what all the pieces of the puzzle are, and what our services are. And there's a lot of risk management support services and HR support services. And I have to brag on our HR team because they are just excellent. They really are a great resource for not only policies, but also job descriptions and troubleshooting problems, somebody to bounce things off. And so they've been very helpful to all of our members. And then something that's in the risk management world are some aspects of loss prevention. We have conducted for you this year, it was actually in November of last year, a passive network assessment. So that was looking at your IT system and your security. That's a cost that we absorb of $18,000. You also in 23 received a Risk Management Excellence Award of 87 for achieving the excellence in how you run your risk management program. And then you've had an emergency operations plan assistance for about $8,000 a couple different times, and a previous passive network assessment back in 2018 that was worth $18,000. So those are valuable tools to prevent losses. And we do those kinds of things for all of our school districts. And then you also have access to a grant program. And there's two types of grants that we have. One is for risk management projects, and the other is for educational grants. And you've taken advantage of those. We've helped you with some of your response protocol training and that documents. And each of those times we've done that is worth $9,500 alone. And so again, it's us investing in reducing the risk, which helps keep the costs down. in a lot of areas. And then there's just tons of HR briefings and trainings that I have a list of, but I won't bore you with all that detail. But I do want to brag on you for your participation in e-learning, or what they're online learning, or on-demand learning now, they're calling it. In the current fiscal year, your staff took 4,951 courses. And of those, 4,600 were completed. So that's almost 96% completion rate on courses. So that's excellent. And that's up from the prior year by quite a bit. You went up from, I think, 90% to 96%. So that means your staff are taking advantage of the training that we do. And our training guru, Mike Van Houten, is now using quite a few AI tools to revamp a lot of courses to make them much more interesting and comprehensive. And so it's exciting to see him develop those capabilities. In fact, he's done presentations at the National Risk Pooling Organizations Conference and got a lot of rave reviews for that work. So we're proud of the program, and again, you're in with the 15 other school districts. We don't have Clark and Washoe, because they're much different from the rest of the state, and they have their own self-insured programs. But we think what we have here, we understand schools, and we try to work with all the school districts to keep you all in good stead from a risk standpoint. So I'll respond with questions if you have.
Thank you. Thank you for this information and for your service. Any questions, comments? Molly?
Why are, for the key exposures, there's a line item for employees and then a separate line item for teachers?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's
I saw that too.
there's teachers is a head count, and the payroll is the dollar amount that they're paid. And the other employees are not teachers. They're your field, your support staff.
It's just delineated into teachers and all other employees.
Why do they need to be separated?
It's just a data gathering thing.
Okay. It's not that,
Our fundamental
higher.
rate for schools is based on the average daily attendance more than any other factor.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Richard?
I think I heard you right, that law enforcement claims are up, and they're part of POLPAC, right? Quite a few different police agencies or sheriff's offices.
Right.
How does that affect the overall rate? Does everybody share that liability?
Now, the schools are rated separately.
Okay,
So the law enforcement, agencies with law enforcement get charged for that risk.
okay,
They share in that rate,
all right.
but you don't.
I was hoping that was the case. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. If there are no other questions or comments.
Madam President, if I can just add,
Of
so
course.
our premium cost over this year over last year is just under $7,000 difference, which is phenomenal. I want to commend the pool for the work they've done to keep those premiums essentially level. We had a pretty good jump last year. We kind of were closing our eyes and hoping the same thing didn't happen. So we're very happy for that. And I just want to note that that's just over $50,000 less than what we actually budgeted for this. So there are some savings there that will reduce our deficit. I thought you might want to know that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for noting that, and thank you very much for that. We appreciate that very much. And thank you to the volunteers on the committee, especially our own Ann Sear. Thank you for all that work. I'm sorry, did I have anybody else make comments, or are we ready for a motion? I
I'll
will
make a
entertain
motion.
Yes, absolutely.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve, as submitted, the proposed renewal of property/casualty insurance package with Nevada public agency insurance pool for a total program cost, including all pool services, not to exceed $959,633.21. Self-insurance bond in an amount not to exceed $5,400, and excess workers' compensation policy with Star Insurance Company in an amount not to exceed $78,500 for July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, as budgeted.
Okay, motion by trustee Varner and second by trustee Roberts. Any board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Once again, thank you so much for all that work and for your services. Okay. Agenda item number 8, informational update on edu staff, substitute staffing services in the Carson City School District, and this is for discussion only. Welcome, Mr. Dan Sadler and Mrs. Heather Smith.
Madam President, thank you, members of the board, and thank you, Heather Smith. Heather is the district manager for EduStaff, and we're very excited to have her helping us out here. Give me 1 second to get this up and running. All right, so it was requested to just get an informational update on EduStaff and our partnership, so that's what we're here to do tonight. Wanted to start with just kind of where we were, and the data is tracking back to September. August is kind of an off month when we look at substitute positions and what we needed to fill, but just to kind of set the stage, before our partnership with EduStaff, we had 97 daily substitutes on our books. We had 12 long-term substitutes and 10 super substitutes. The super subs are those that report to a specific site each day, and then they're used in different capacities if we have vacancies, last-minute illness calls, things like that. So this is where we were September through March. This is kind of just setting the stage for absence trends, again, for the same timeline, September through March. So you can see on the graph there, like in September, as we're getting the school year started, very low number of absences overall. And again, as a reminder, this is very specific just to teachers. Peak absences, we see those numbers start pumping up a little bit, October, January, and March. And that's pretty typical if we go historically back. We start having illness, seasonal illness pop up. And mid-year fatigue, that's a real thing as well. By far, March was our busiest month as far as getting coverage goes. This slide shows how teacher absences increased steadily throughout the year, again, kind of peaking in March. A little bit different view on that, though, as far as looking at the fill rates. So we started the year off going back here, September, we only needed, 390 to cover the entire month. So that fill rate was up quite a bit in September. And then you see that dip down in October as we needed more coverage. So 68.13% in October. February was another dip, 69.61. And then we see a recovery starting in March, 77.69. Now our goal would be to have 100%. That's where we'd like to be. We've never been 100%. And really since the days of COVID being a thing, it's been steadily in the 60s and 70s pretty consistently throughout the year. So this just compares those two data points. You can see in the blue the total number of absences, and then that green graph overlay just showing what those fill rates are on the and the percentages on the right side. This is just a total look at the number of unfilled absences, both in number and percentage by month. So you can see that in the blue, the total absences and the number that were unfilled for that month. As board members, you may hear people bringing concerns about filling positions and not enough subs to go around, and I have to cover on my prep period. So anytime we have an unfilled position, we're kind of scrambling and trying to find people who can cover those positions. And so you can kind of just see the impact of that. Again, as we have more absences, typically we struggle filling positions. And so the reason I've been highlighting September through March is because our go live date with EduStaff was officially launched in April, about mid-April. And really our goal initially is to improve sub-fill rates and reduce unfilled absences, and then focus on increasing the capacity and responsiveness. So also adding additional staff. And so April was our first go live date. I'm going to turn it over here. Well, I've got one more slide here before I get to you, don't I? So pre-partnership, again, back to that first slide, 97 daily subs, 12 long-term subs, 10 super subs. And then when we partnered with EduStaff, you can see some of those numbers start to jump here, which is really positive momentum. Heather and her team is fantastic. They've been very supportive from the get-go. And we have a very small sample size here so far. Essentially, the numbers we're going to be showing you here are specific to April and May. But those were very busy months as far as subs needed. Also getting Heather hired and moved here from Oregon. She'll tell you a little bit about that. But she's been doing a tremendous job of recruiting and really just getting the word out there. She does the onboarding for all of our substitute teachers. She has done all the transition for the previous substitutes that were employed by the school district as well. So we're seeing some really good numbers start to show up here at the end of the school year. So with that, I'll turn things over to Heather.
Okay, awesome. Stay on that slide just for a second.
Yep.
Do I need to click this?
Yep.
Sorry, first time. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more about those numbers. So original census list, that is the 97, 12, and 10 put together. From that list, we've had 80 subs roll over to us, which is a great number right now. One is pending. The 21 applications not started, those are partially the long-term and super subs that we waited until the end of the school year to finish out their contracts and then to start rolling them over now. So I expect those to start coming to us soon. The new recruits are included with anyone who has started an application or are pending a workshop or have been fully approved. So that 125 is exciting to see that there's people interested in getting going. So far since mid-April to now, we've had 18 new subs come on, which is exciting, and there are 8 more pending right now. So just meaning they might be missing a certain document or something that they're finishing up. The bottom number, 105, is just saying the total number when we run our report that are approved and ready to work as of right now. And then hopefully once we get that 21 applications not started from the census going, we'll be breaking even or going a little higher than where we started. And I'll be continuing my recruiting efforts all summer and ongoing. So next slide. Just thought it would be kind of nice to see like some of the recruitment that's going on. Anywhere from marketing more so, yard signs, banners you might have seen around some of the school campuses, which is really nice to see. I've heard people coming in as new recruits who are saying they're seeing them and it's helping them to apply. So that will be refreshed every year. I've gone to some college events like a EDU info night at TMCC, Western Nevada College. They're getting going on getting handshake and everything ready, but they just opened this awesome new employer center at their campus. So I was able to connect with some people there and get some stuff going on how we can find those future teachers and get them into subbing for us. We have a billboard added on the highway, and also just I'm frequently reposting the Indeed job posting just so it can stay fresh on people's minds when they're looking for jobs. So just some of those things that are going on, going through the community, canvassing, getting the word out. I even went to a fun Cinco de Mayo event that was local and connected with some people, and one of the people I met there actually just came to our last workshop, so that was awesome to see. Last thing, we have a Carson City Career Fair going on this Thursday, which is exciting, and some more stuff going on in the fall with the colleges career fair wise. So lots of exciting things going on.
And for the listeners at home, where's that career fair located?
Yeah. It is actually just, I'm not sure yet. It just got rescheduled. It was supposed to be 2 weeks ago and it got too big, so they had to reschedule it for this week. So TBD, I'm waiting for the email. Downtown, they said.
Who's coordinating that?
It's the, I'm blanking on the name. It's like a big organization
Okay.
that they do them throughout the entire country.
Nice.
So that'll be cool. And they've been doing extra like recruitment stuff for us and like getting advertising out from their end as well.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then just brief ongoing marketing that's always happening, social media, the yard signs that you see around, business cards in the schools. I've seen some put like the big QR codes on the windows. So just some visuals to see kind of what's going around. And then digital as well, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Google, Spotify. I know maybe it's because I work for EduStaff, but I definitely am getting all of those myself. So just some stuff to let you guys know what's going on and how we're trying to improve those fill rates and really build a strong, thriving substitute pool.
Okay, so just back to some of the data, and again, I'll have this mapped out for you. So the fill rates did improve to 78.57% in April, 77.67 in May. Sick leave coverage also rose to 76% in both of those months. I broke down sick leave in school business because it's different in that typically when we have school business, it's planned for, and we have people who are submitting that ahead of time. Those are getting picked up. We're getting those filled. What really is our struggle is when we have last-minute illness absences, and those are unavoidable. So there's no finger pointing there. It just comes with the territory. We have people who are out sick. They put in the day of, could be, even after their contract time started sometimes because they just weren't feeling well. Those are the ones that we're really struggling to fill overall. But school business, I wanted to look at that a little bit differently because I kind of perceive that as those are the absences we can control, and what does that contribute to this as well. So school business absences are getting filled at a higher rate, but you can kind of see the number for April and May of absences that we had total and the number of unfilled absences. So
What are school business days?
So it could be anything from you have a staff member who's a coach and they're going to a game in Reno, so they have to leave. So that's school business. It could be professional learning. It could be that they're at a conference, anything that's related to school.
Are the professional learning days not the days that we don't have school?
Yeah,
Are
those
there
are
early
district-wide, sure, but there's other trainings that are going on for like MTSS as an example. If we have a school who's attending MTSS training up in Reno on a Thursday and a Friday, that's going to be a school business absence.
Oh.
There's a lot more training that goes on other than just the early release days district-wide. And so this is just a comparative analysis of the total absences, again, September through May, so including the entire school year. Didn't include June, very small sample size there with the last week of school. And then again, September being that low month. So really looking forward to our continued partnership and developing with EduStaff. Again, so far it's been really, really, very positive. We have heard from some of our substitute teachers that have been with us for a very long time, some frustrations in transitioning. It's change, it's different. And so we've been trying to work through that. And recently had a conversation with Heather about how we might be able to even differentiate support and training for some of our staff. We have somebody who is a retired teacher that's been subbing for us for 15 years. Their needs are going to be very different than somebody who's just coming into substitute teaching and hasn't been in a classroom. So we certainly identify that, and EduStaff is a good partner in working through that with us. But again, we want to keep pumping those numbers up as far as the coverage that we have. And look forward to the continued partnership. So at this time, any questions that you might have, we'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for this information. This data is very helpful. Any questions or comments? Richard?
If I'm reading this right, originally we had 119 subs on the books, and now we have 105. But I know that doesn't count the ones in the pipeline, but you had 125 new recruits and only 18 have been approved. What's the delay in approving them, I guess? Is it just
Well, really, it's
time
mostly,
consuming?
yeah, it's mostly just for either people start an application and they're not sure if they're starting yet, so they're kind of just sitting there. We communicate every 2 weeks. I communicate every 2 weeks to incomplete applicants. So kind of just sending like a reminder of where they're at, what the next steps are, and we typically will see once that happens, a few more will start applying again. So I think it is a lengthy process to become a sub generally, needing to go through the Nevada Department of Ed and then go through EduStaff, or if it were a school district, however that is. So I think it's just really people kind of taking the time and not knowing. So with those little communications throughout the way, we've noticed more will continue to just keep slowly applying and get through it.
Hopefully that's the case. The other question I have is, when we first discussed this, there was supposed to be a financial break even, and I'm curious about where we're at financially. Are we breaking even? Is it costing us money more than it was before?
Well, we essentially have a 2.5-month sample size as of right now. And so there is a markup for the rate that we're charged for subs. The break even for us is going to be overall as we continue this partnership, especially with the long-term subs and our super subs, because there's a significant cost savings.
Okay, so right now we're not breaking even?
There's an upcharge right now, yes.
And what is that?
Off the top of my head.
26%, I think it was.
Yeah, I think
The other side of that,
Dollar-wise,
though,
if we know.
and we talked about this in the presentation, is that if it is less expensive to have a sub cover a class than it is for us to pay our own employee to cover with their prep period. And so that's where it's kind of imperfect. I mean, you can kind of guess at what that would be, but it's kind of imperfect because we don't always know. I guess if we assume that, we would always have someone cover with their prep period. Every time that happens, or I should say, every time that doesn't happen, we know we're saving money as compared to what we would have spent. We could try to do some analysis, especially once we get into next
yeah,
year.
I think we're going to need to. It's just a small sample size right now. But to AJ's point, like, and I'll use middle school because that was my previous world. If we had to cover a teacher by prep period at 6 prep periods a day, that's a daily sub cost of more than $240. So the other thing to keep in mind with the upcharge that we're paying to EduStaff is that we already have about 17 to 18% of that built into our own costs for the employment taxes that we have to provide as an employer that EduStaff absorbs into that upcharge.
Yeah, and I know it's a short period of time right now, so maybe next year when we get a bigger sample, we can revisit that.
Sure.
Because I am concerned that why don't we be paying a whole lot more money than what we were before? There is some advantages, I understand that. And then one of the things, if I recall right, to help offset the cost was we're supposed to get rid of Red Rover and that cost. Is that going to occur, or am I mistaken on that?
Sorry, Spencer, one for the record. I think when we initially had EduStaff come present, they talked about covering the cost of Red Rover for us. In the time from they initially came to the time that we actually did enter into a contract with them, they reduced their percentage of markup and just had us keep the Red Rover cost that we have. Red Rover replaced the ASOP, formerly ASOP system that we had that's our sub finder. So that's a necessary software that we need to get our subs in place. So that'd be a cost that we'd have with or without EduStaff.
Okay,
Does
thank
does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, thank you. Okay, so, I understand that we pay the daily subs $150 a day, correct? So how much do we pay the super subs per day?
Super subs is 175.
So, if we're looking at, because you had mentioned that within the 119, we would maybe eliminate the super subs. But if they're within the number, that you gave us, which was the 105, why would they go? I can't see that they would want to go from a super sub just to a regular sub. Because I thought that's what I heard when you answered Trustee Varner, is that within there, the 119 has all of the subs, right? And that, how many moved over? 105. And within that 105 are super subs, correct?
Not all of them, no, just because we just started the process for rolling over those applications not started, the 21. We've had about 8 rollovers since summer started, but we're still communicating and trying to get them to do the process. So 105 is included with some of them, but not all of them yet.
Okay, but in that 105, we will have a line item that says the 10 super subs, correct? Because, I mean, you're not putting the super subs back into the pool, are you?
Well, so everyone applies just as a sub, and then when we get told who the super subs are for the districts, we put that pay code on their account essentially so that they get paid at that rate.
Okay.
And-
Yeah,
and-
I just was in fear that you're putting them all in a pool and then, you know what I'm saying? Okay, maybe I didn't come out as right, but I'm like, hold on a minute, that's not, yeah. Because I understand that the super subs are extremely a relief for the schools. They're permanent, they know that they're there, and they do, at the end of the day, keep teachers from having to go into the classroom. So they are a savings as well. So I just wanted to make sure that they weren't being put into that 105, and then whoever gets a lottery name picked out, they're a super sub.
Yeah, right. I think right now we're just putting it into one lump sum because we haven't identified who
Okay.
all is going to be in those positions yet for the next school year.
And it would be the same with long-term subs. We don't know what our need is going to be there. Right now, if you look at the vacancies that we have posted for certified teaching positions, we have 7 district-wide as of right now. So our hope is that we'd fill all 7 of those this summer and have 0 vacancies. But if we do have a vacancy and we need to place a long-term sub, it would be somebody who's already gone through the hiring process in EduStaff, and then the principal would request that person from EduStaff to be the long-term sub.
Okay, that makes sense. And then during the months of April and May, if I went to the different schools and talked to the secretaries who normally filled these positions at, the subs at 6:30 in the morning, calling around, would they say that EduStaff has made a huge improvement in them not having to do that?
Not on the daily scramble. That's where we all struggle, is we go to bed at night and we're filled. We don't have any vacant positions, and we wake up in the morning and we've got 10 teachers out.
And so EduStaff doesn't take care of those fillings? Those are still within this individual school?
It's kind of all hands on deck when it comes to that point. And so I don't think that's something that's going to completely go away. If we have last minute vacancies, it's going to be, how do we fill this last minute? So yeah, that is certainly involving the sites. When we say EduStaff for our district, Heather is one person. So when we look at all schools, she can't do that by herself either. Wake up in the morning and say, okay, now I've got to cover vacancies at every single one of these sites. That's always going to be a team approach.
Okay, but you are in that.
Yeah, so
Okay,
let me kind of explain. So for my part, I'm like the mass communicator. So essentially, I have, like a generator that I go on Red Rover, I pull every name that says they're available and willing to get a communication about a job for the day. And then I send a message saying, hey, this school, and this school have openings, we need help, or it's a high need day, anything just to get a message that goes directly to a text to their phone to let them know that like we need extra help. So it's kind of like a enhanced communication. Plus, we just need those office managers who have those connections with subs they know they can rely on to also help if they can't get it filled from our communications coming out and guiding them to Red Rover.
That makes sense, thank you.
Yeah.
And then teachers are still able to request certain subs, right? So like if they know that they're going to be out, how do they do that within the system to request a certain substitute?
Well, you can assign a sub if you know, like you spoke with the sub about it and you want to say, hey, are you willing to sub for me on Wednesday? I'm going to be out, and they can say yes, and either the teacher or office manager or even I can assign them to the job. Yeah.
Great. Yep.
The number of absences, it went up, on your first. Did you calculate that day or periods? Was that a full day? Because it went from 300 and something to over 1,000. Go back.
You talking about this data here?
Yes. So are those full days, or did you calculate periods in there as well?
It's anytime we have something that's unfilled or anytime we have something that's requested and covered. So that could be a half day, it could be a full day.
Because I think it would just make sense, some months are going to be higher when you have, 6 different sports going on versus, okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I have a comment. You already said you've had feedback from some of those that have been with the district for a while. So thank you. I also reached out to the few that I know for feedback, and it's mostly been positive, just so the board is aware. And yeah, if you want those responses, I'd be happy to share them, or I don't know what the best way to do that is. Read them now, email you all. What do you think? No, like individually or email AJ?
AJ.
Okay. And then, yeah, just a couple like little hiccups that maybe I can reach out to you guys. You've probably already heard them, but just to make sure that everyone's being heard.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And that might be something that you may consider doing in the future, maybe doing a survey from all those individuals that have gone through this process, just so that they can provide us input on how they feel that this system worked. It may be helpful for everyone.
Yeah, one thing I do want to highlight that was attractive to our partnership with EduStaff from the get-go is the training opportunities that are provided for substitute teachers. And when we compare to the training opportunities that existed previous, it was zero. And so I think a lot of the veteran substitutes, especially if they're a retired educator, they have a lot of experience. They know what they're doing and very much have communicated that they feel they need zero training. But some of these trainings are mandatory as well, things that we have an obligation to provide. So that is definitely a different part of the conversation for people who have not had to do trainings in the past. But again, trying to recognize where people are in their skill sets, that training isn't necessarily going to be applicable to every single person who's in a different spot, I guess I should say.
Understandable,
Yep.
yeah.
If the training is mandatory, then we have to pay them to take it, right? How are we handling that?
EduStaff employees, so I would ask how they cover it.
I don't believe that it's required in Nevada. What I was told to pay for that training.
So they don't get paid while they attend the training? Is that
No.
right? Okay.
I had another question off that one, or off that. If a substitute only wants to do a certain level.
Yeah.
Is that like in their profile, they just kind of click elementary, middle, or high school, and then not to contact them?
So on Red Rover, it's more of an absent management thing that they can do, but they can put their preferences on like school sites that they want, or like they can be favorited at certain school sites or blocked at certain school sites. So yes, they have a ability to pick and choose essentially what they want. A lot of them tend to stay in one area. It seems like the high school likes the high school, the elementary likes the elementary, but there's some that like to float around. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, thank you so much for this presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We want the program to be successful, so
Yes.
I am
for
going to
sure.
do all I can to make it successful.
Even though we have questions, but, and I'd like to revisit it maybe mid-year next year to see how things are going. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action to approve renewal of agreement between Compass Group, Inc., USA, Chartsville, Food Service Management Consultant, and the Carson City School District from July 1, 2025 to June 30th, 2026, at a cost to the district of an administrative fee not to exceed $6,500 per month for 10 months and a management fee not to exceed 0.1050 per meal, with funding to come from the nutrition fund, and this is for possible action. Mr. Spencer Winward, welcome back.
Thank you, Madam President. So it wasn't a galaxy far, far away, but a long, long time ago, there was a RFP process to start. So back in October, our Julie from our operations and Elizabeth from food services got together to begin to put together this RFP process. Very lengthy. I think it's about 60 pages that they complete. And then that goes to the Nevada Department of Agriculture for their approval to start the RFP process. So that all happens, it gets approved, and then we have the official RFP where we put it out to any interested company who wants to come and apply to be our food service management company. And they have to check all the boxes, do everything they do, and then they apply. And if they go through a vetting process, and if we had 2 companies that applied and both of them actually received or qualified through that vetting process, they were formally interviewed through a panel in the RFP process. Mr. Clapham, who's not here tonight, was part of that panel. There's stakeholders from the community, stakeholders from different employee groups in the district. I was there in a facilitator role, so I did get to observe all of this. And it's a very quite extensive process to get to that point. And then the RFP, these companies present you with a binder with a couple hundred pages of information. And so that all took place until about February, and then we have one of those is selected based off the recommendation of the RFP committee. I believe it was unanimous this year in who we selected, which was Chartwell's, subsidiary of Compass Group. I call them Chartwell, so I'll just keep using that name. They were selected to continue to provide this service for us. So once that all happens, then we actually have an application or a contract, which in years past, so this happens every 5 years. 5 years ago, a separate contract was extrapolated from all that data from the RFP. Nevada has now adopted a process similar to the state of Arizona, where they take the bulk of the documents of that RFP and that becomes the contract. So that's what was provided to you in your packets. And then that becomes the contract that, once again, has to go to Nevada Department of Agriculture for them to approve it. Our actual policy doesn't require that this contract comes to you for your approval, but the USDA does require that the board approves it. So that's why we're here. And that's a very long story on how this all happened. So this wasn't something we just threw together last week and it's like, hey, let's do this. It's been a lot of input, a lot of process thought out to bring this together. And I'm not sure if any of you have any questions specific to the documents that were provided. Chartwell's does offer a financial guarantee. In this particular case, it would be that they would refund their administrative and, excuse me, let me find the exact words here. Management, there we go. I was like, I heard something from over there. It was faster than my eyes in the small print. So their administrative management fees, they offer to refund those if they don't hit the level of revenues minus expenditures that we're hoping for. So in this particular year, they say that they can make it to where we will lose $40,000, which that sounds bad, but given the landscape of student nutrition, it's very, very difficult to turn a profit at all. And so we feel that if they came in with some very likely goals and projections of what that would be, and we would do that. The nice thing is over the course of the 5 years, they project that would slowly get closer to zero, and year 5 would actually turn a profit. So that's based off their projections. Those are on page 59 of, it's called Fixed Price Financial Projected Worksheet at the top. If you wanted to review those, shows all the revenues that they anticipate and expenditures. They base that off of food costs. They factor in some inflation. They have a lot of professionals who put a lot of time into these projections. They use our labor costs and some projections from there to come up with those numbers. So I welcome any questions you may have regarding this agreement. Once again, this is a 5-year agreement. It does come before you once a year for any amendments that we have. So you've seen this probably a very shortened form of this every year for the addendum to this actual contract.
Questions or comments? Molly?
So this actually came from a member of the public when it comes to the menus. And just a curiosity of why the menus every day are different at the schools instead of being the same. Like, so for example, an elementary school might get, I don't know, pizza, whereas another element, and pizza might be a bad example because we know all elementary schools get pizza, but it's probably not a good example. But other elementary schools may never see that. And so within the menu, I noticed that within the contract, it doesn't say that, because I think it would be quite simple then, even on our website, if we could say every Monday, every Tuesday, and every elementary school is going to have the same thing. Both middle schools are going to have the same thing, on that end. But the menus are always different for each.
Yeah, so they have found, and they're continually getting input from the students. They have some samples that they'll have a smiley face or frowny face, and you taste it and you put your vote in, yes, I like it, no, I don't. And so they're constantly evolving those menus, and they've found that in each of the schools, even though they're not very far apart from each other, some of those tastes and likes of the students are different from one school to the other. So that's one of the main reasons. A couple of our other kitchens, sometimes the kitchen's a little bit different from one school to another, and they can't quite accommodate what some others do. So that you might see a few menu differences just because it would be really difficult or not cost effective to serve one item at one school where they could do it at another just based off of resources of the kitchen.
And I would just add too, just because I know the history on this. So back in 2010, when we first went with a food service management company, it was a different company at that time. But my understand what we offered in our menus was very, very limited. It was at least at the elementaries, I believe there was one entree, and I think it was the same at every school. And so in that part of that process and in kind of gathering, well, what are we looking for? It was trying to add more variety to the menus. I think over time, as data collection has become so much easier in analysis, as Spencer said, they've learned that certain sites have certain tastes, and so they can actually modify, because they do it's every 3 or 5 weeks they do menu planning, I think, and so they will modify kind of in real time based on how students are responding to certain menu items.
Yeah, they're also checking if they serve the same meal at two schools and at one school it was a hit and the other one it wasn't, that's where they'd modify and maybe pull that out of the next rotation and serve something else because they saw a lot of food waste happening on the broccoli pizza day.
Yeah. Okay, and then this, I don't think has anything to do with, it has to do with nutrition, but not part of this contract. And I know it's by statute that we are to allow students to eat breakfast after the bell. Do you ever foresee that changing? Because I just see that if they're bringing breakfast into the classroom, it may, or am I outside of? Yeah.
I do have a question. On the advisory board, it says that it is composed of parents, teachers, and students to assist in menu planning. Do you know how often they meet?
I believe they meet quarterly.
Quarterly? Yeah,
It's quarterly or every other month.
okay. Great. And then I do have, on page number 1, this is just a minor recommendation. Let's see, on item number 3, the second to last line, where it says the warranted subsidy to the SFA shall be reduced to the account for increase, et cetera. But SFA, I could not figure out what that meant until I went through other pages and I found the definition, and it's School Food Authority. I'm wondering if it would be helpful to add the description of what SFA means.
We could, and that's something we probably should look. The order that we provided this to is the order that NDA approved it for us. That's actually like 300 pages into the RFP, so that's probably why it wasn't delineated right there.
Gotcha.
We could kind of look at some of those things to make sure, that was your acronym for the week, I
It took me a while
believe,
to
so.
figure out what that meant until I got to the definitions. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else has any other questions or comments?
I have one random question. Is it a Chartwell's thing or a school site thing where the kindergartners don't get a choice? They just get the main whatever's being served? There's a couple choices, but they are just told you get this.
It's the two of them in conjunction.
Okay.
Just because you have a finite amount of time to serve kindergartners. And some of them, it takes 7 or 8 minutes to decide if they want the blue Pop-Tart or the red Pop-Tart.
Okay, that's what I
So
figured. It's
some of those
helpful
have-
for parents to know when they're like, oh, do you want this or a home lunch? And they don't really actually have either choice.
Yeah, some of those decisions are reduced just for ease of serving the kids in the allotted time allowed. Those are whole grain Pop-Tarts, just for the record.
So if there are no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
That was 9, right? Yeah. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve renewal of agreement between Compass Group Incorporated, USA Chartwells, Food Service Management Consultant, and the Carson City School District from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026 at a cost to the district of an administrative fee not to exceed $6,500 per month for 10 months and a management fee not to exceed, do I have to read that whole 1.1050 per meal with funding to come from the nutrition fund?
Okay, we have a motion from trustee Roberts and second by trustee Wall. Any board discussion? See none. Any public comment? See none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, members
All
of the
right,
board.
thank you so much, Spencer. We appreciate it. Okay. Agenda item number 10, discussion and possible action to approve proposed changes to CCSD Policy 245, Wellness Policy, this is for second reading, and this is for possible action. Mr. Superintendent Adrian Feeling.
Thank you, President Ramirez. Excuse me, at our last board meeting, we had a reading of first reading of policy 245, the wellness policy. There were no substantial changes, some typographical corrections, and nothing has changed since then, and here for your consideration.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? If not, this is pretty straightforward. Do we have a motion or unless,
I'll make a motion.
yeah, you're okay, go ahead.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve June 24th, 2025 as the revised date on policy 245, the wellness policy.
Okay, motion by trustee Varner and second by trustee Roberts. Any board discussion? See none. Any public comment? See none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. And agenda item number 12, presentation on the 2024-2025 map measures of a.
President Ramirez.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped one. Sorry. Oh, my goodness. I checked them both. Agenda item number 11, discussion and possible action to approve proposed changes to CCSD Policy 270, suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. And this is for second reading for possible action.
Thank you again, President Ramirez. At the last meeting of the Board of Trustees, the revisions to Policy 270, Suicide Prevention, Intervention, and Postvention, were brought before the board. And again, no substantive changes, just a few typographical fixes. So here again for your consideration.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, in that case, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve June 24th, 2025 as the revised date of Policy 270, Suicide Prevention, Intervention, and Postvention.
Second.
Okay, so motion by trustee Walt and second by trustee Varner. Any board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye, any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Now I can say agenda item number 12. Presentation on the 2024-2025 MAP measures of academic progress, testing results, and district initiatives to support growth in math and literacy in grades K through 8th, and this is for discussion only. Superintendent Fueling and Ms. Tasha Fusen. Welcome.
Thank you, President Ramirez. This was an effort to get Mrs. Fuson up here one more time to talk about.
One of many.
Oh, do you? Okay. But thank you again, President Ramirez and trustees. So as you're aware, the school district, Carson City School District, has done MAP testing as interim testing for a long time. And so this is something that is happening every fall, every winter, and every spring for our staff, our principals, teachers, to be able to look at how students are progressing. And so this spring data is the final data of the year. And so we thought we would bring that to you to take a look at how, what those results look like. So first in the elementary schools. So there's three primary charts that I'll pull for each one of these. And the first one here is achievement. So it's for the spring map, the reading achievement quintile, and I guess the greatest similarity to the idea of like what would we to the SBAC that's going to be coming up. And I think that's an important piece of this too, is when we talk about like state accountability and that sort of thing, that's really the SBAC test, which also happened, but we won't have results still for a number of weeks. But as a kind of a proxy of how things are looking going into that testing, this is something we can look at. So you have the different quintiles. Blue is, I guess, the highest performing. I don't know if there's a tech exceeding expectations. And then green moving down, yellow, orange, red. Red, of course, are students who are performing on the lower end of that spectrum. So overall, I mean, like in thinking about the, I guess if green and blue are those higher quintiles where you'd like to see students be, yellow being kind of in that mid-range but still doing well, that's kind of that grouping that we're looking at for change. And so overall with reading, some incremental improvement in increasing the range of that yellow, green, and blue for students, again, in this achievement metric that we're looking at. When you go to growth, so this is looking at growth from last spring to this spring. So you're getting that whole year look at how students are doing. And so again, here, even more pronounced, you're seeing a better look at growth than you did the previous year and even the previous year. And in fact, the growth is better than we've seen in the last 4 years. Sorry, spring to spring met projected growth. So the MAP test itself generates what it expects your growth rate to be. Ms. Fuson, if you want to explain.
So based on where a student is, each one of their scores are basically individualized for the students so that they are in all these different comparisons. One, they're compared to the whole group of students at their same time of learning in that same grade level. But another element is if you're growing, so say for instance, you're a year behind in terms of your achievement, but we actually need to close the achievement gap. So we need you to learn more than a year and have more than a year of growth to close that achievement gap. So that's another measure. And then the MET projected growth. So saying based on where you're learning, if you were to, that's what I was getting to, if you were to actually try to move forward and start to close that achievement gap over a 3-year period of time, are you meeting that particular goal? So that's why you have 3 different indicators. Does that make sense? So where are you in terms of achievement? Where are you in terms of last year from spring to where you are now? And are you meeting your projected growth if we're going to close the achievement gap to get you on track to be at grade level? So you're looking at it 3 different ways or 3 different scores. And of course, in all these areas, we want students to be in the green and the blue. I mean, that's where we want them to be. Our red and our yellow, or red and our orange students in this particular one are the ones that we're really working on trying to support them in interventions. So we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like in a few slides. But this is what we're looking at for ELA. You can see we're rebounding a little bit, but not nearly where we would want to be. So again, we'll talk about what steps we have going on there, but we do have a little bit better results to discuss in math. And then we'll go back to what is it that we're doing for ELA and math, right? So we just wanted to go over the scores first before we talk about the steps the district and schools are taking.
So here, this is math achievement. So again, that kind of the closest similarity to the SBAC in terms of trying to measure achievement levels. So you have pretty significant growth actually with, again, the blue, green, and yellow categories from the prior 2 years. And again, exceeding what we have seen over the past 4 or 5 years. So that's, again, that doesn't necessarily mean it exactly translates onto the SBAC, but it gives you a pretty good sense of our kids moving in the right direction where hopefully that performance will translate over. Spring to spring growth, again, pretty substantial, the best growth that we've seen in the past 4 years. Across our elementary schools for mathematics, and then students meeting projected growth. So again, noticeable improvement over the past few years in terms of kids meeting, getting to a point in their achievement level that we would have projected them, or that MAP would have projected them to meet. So incremental growth and improvement in ELA in reading, but some substantial movement in math over the past year. And then we have the middle schools who also take the MAP tests. So middle school ELA, again, looking at the blue, green, and yellow, improving over the last 2 years and definitely trending in the right direction overall for reading achievement. Spring to spring growth. Again, improvement over the past couple years, and the best we've seen in the past 3-4 years. Oops. And then MET projected growth, again, seeing some substantial improvement there across the middle schools. mathematics achievement. Again, improvement from the last 2 years, about in line with where we were in 2022. So moving in the right direction. Spring to spring growth, a substantial improvement, the best we've seen in the last 4 years. And meeting projected growth. Again, kind of that same story. So really on the mathematics side in particular, across not only elementary but middle school levels, we are seeing some quite a bit of movement in those areas. So that's great to see. We know that we have a lot of people working really, really hard to make all of that happen for our students. So kudos to all of them to help bring that along. So Mrs. Fuson is going to take a little time. I guess maybe before I let Mrs. Fuson kind of elaborate more on what's going on and some of the changes that have happened, are there any questions about the data at all?
Questions or comments?
I'm sure it's too early to know where we stand statewide comparison.
Okay.
Okay, so you have all heard, I'm sure, numerous times our teachers talk about proficiency scales, or we've mentioned proficiency scales. And I thought this would be a good time for us to dive into those a little bit. So we will, and I put some in your packets, and there's some things I'm going to point out. But in having conversations with our elementary teachers, getting feedback from them, as well as our elementary principals, about why we feel like we're seeing such remarkable growth over the past couple years, really it comes back down to the work we've been doing around proficiency scales. We also were able to, as you all know, adopt a new math instructional resource, Math and You, for K-5 elementary mathematics. And the thing that was really so important about that step is that after we had written our curriculum, reassigned taken our proficiency scales, broken them up into units of instruction, to find a math resource that actually met those proficiency scales and gave the teachers the resources that they need to be able to teach the students at that level, that has been a game changer for our teachers versus them having to go out and do a lot of research, pulling things off a teacher paid teacher, pulling things here, there, everywhere else, trying to put together strong curriculum for the classroom. We were able to provide a comprehensive a math instructional resource for them. We were also able to rewrite all of our common assessments aligned to those instructional resources and aligned to the proficiency scales so that then teachers had those assessments that they were able to give in class, get the assessment results back, and then start making adjustments for students based on where their weaknesses or where they hadn't succeeded on those assessments, so they could reteach that. Again, I'm going to show you what that looks like on a proficiency scale. But then overall, we've had really high quality ongoing professional learning for teachers throughout this school year. So we kicked off the 24-25 school year with a full day of math PD for elementary schools, and then each of our elementary schools had additional PD time, I think 3 other days during on those minimum days, where we did follow-up training on the math instructional resources and assisting them to utilize them to all the different areas within the math instructional resource that exists. It's very difficult. People think sometimes they can just literally take a textbook and go, okay, here's my textbook, and a teacher's going to be able to use it. We are so fortunate nowadays that everything is basically technology-based, and many of the resources that we get have built into them supports for teachers to be able to take in and help fill in achievement gaps for students. But as a teacher, it takes a lot of time to do planning, utilizing those resources to dive in, dig in, and find out where they're at and how to match them to your students. So that takes a lot of time. Sometimes people wonder, well, geez, this is a first grade teacher. What is this teacher doing in terms of planning and preparing, and why, they're giving a worksheet that has like 1 + 1 on it. How hard is that to do? No, it is way more complicated than that. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. So if you look at in your packet, you have proficiency scales. I actually gave you the addition proficiency scale for kinder math, the addition proficiency scale for first grade math, and the addition proficiency scale for second grade math. if you look at that in a level 3, so on the board, you also again have them in your packet, but what's showing on the screen here, our proficiency scales actually start at a level 4 at the top. A level 4 is exceeding grade level standard. So when you have a student who's mastered the grade level and needs to have enrichment so that they can move forward, these proficiency scales give that example to teachers to say, here's how you can extend learning for students. And then again, in our Math and U resources, it has those resources built in so that the teacher doesn't have to go looking for that, right? They can look at this and go, okay, I need to pull this and enrich for this student. But at the 3.0, yeah.
Does it also then give resources for teachers, for students who are above?
That is
Oh,
what the
this
four,
is-
yeah, that
okay,
is the
that's a
enrichment,
fourth.
what we call the 4.0 and the enrichment. So yes, our
Okay.
Math and U resources have it for, so say we're a classroom of 6, you 4 have got it, and you're ready to go on. There's resources for them to take that extension activity. So it is related to the standard, the grade level standard, but it helps the students dive in deeper and not necessarily go to the next grade level expectation, but actually work on that grade level expectation in a deeper, richer way. Well, then AJ and I over here, we need a little remediation. So then it gives them resources for helping figure out where our gaps in learning are, and they can fill in the gaps, right? So it has those resources available for teachers, and it has resources for teachers to help meet the needs of like English language learners. And it has additional suggestions and supports for them for the language side to help students, even in mathematics, because many of our EL students who struggle in mathematics, it's a language issue more so than whether or not I know how to do the math, right? So we've gotten a lot of very favorable feedback from our teachers on that and the resources that are available to them.
And so then I noticed in the packet, the packet was the math. Are the same type of resources available for the literacy?
So we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay, so then at the 2.0 level, that is what we call a learning progression. And what sometimes families and our community folks don't understand is that in order for a student to do something at grade level, there's a lot of base skills that a student needs to have, right, mastery of, and be able to put those together to do that thing at grade level. So these proficiency skills describe that. Everything at a 2.0 level is part of that learning progression. A student has to know and be able to do those things to do the grade level standard at a level 3. So when we talk about learning gaps, if you go to the next one, if you talk about learning gaps, actually, let me go back. So before I talk about learning gaps, nope, this is good. Before I talk about learning gaps, I think the important thing is to know, for teachers to also know what addition looks like in kinder, first, and second, right? Sometimes you go, okay, well, you have to teach the kids addition. Well, addition in second grade looks very different than addition in kinder. So looking at your 3 proficiency skills that you have, for instance, if you look at that 3.0 level, right, I look at the kinder one, the A1, students need to solve or add to addition problems in the range 1 through 10. And it gives an example. So when given the problem 4 plus 2 equals what? A student has to be able to do that. Or 3 plus 5 more, verbally saying to a student, they have to be able to go, well, 3 plus 5 more means this. Or if 2 bunnies are sitting in the grass and 5 more hop there, how many bunnies are now there, right? So that's what kinder addition looks like. If you go to first grade, they have to add up to 3 numbers whose sum is less or equal to 20. For example, adding 10 plus 6 plus 2, right? Or adding 4 plus 7 plus 6. So again, this gives you an example of what that looks like. And then you go into second grade math. Now they're adding 3-digit numbers within 1,000. So 705 plus 180. The reason why this is important is you say to a teacher, well, I have struggling learners in my classroom. I'm a second grade teacher, and I have 20 students, and they're all at different levels, but I'm teaching addition, and I'm trying to accommodate for my students who maybe aren't up to grade level task. Well, if I'm teaching those students at the kinder level, and then they have to roll in and take an SBAC. Well, actually, I don't take SBAC the third grade, so I should have used third grade as an example. But so if you're teaching third graders, right, addition, but you're teaching addition and you're accommodating for students who are struggling learners, and you're only hitting that kinder level addition or that first grade level addition, then they're never going to be able to perform on a third grade assessment. So it's important for teachers to know very specifically what that grade level standard means, what it looks like, and what the students actually need to be able to do. And it's important for students to know that as well, and for families, right? So we actually have worked on these scales to be able to provide this information to families as well, so they can see the difference. Addition is not the same in kinder as it is in second, right? So here's a prime example. And then for teachers now, if you'll go to the next one. When you get down to the learning progression at that 2.0, these are the things that when we say we have to fill learning gaps, most of our students, for instance, this is a second grade example, right, who come in and who struggle to hit that adding 3-digit numbers, for instance. It's not because they don't know anything about addition. It's because somewhere within this progression of learning, somewhere within all of these little 2.0 items, they might have a misconception. They might have a misunderstanding. They might have a misstep. They maybe missed instruction for 2 weeks when they were in first grade when they covered that. Teachers have to be able to identify those gaps and fill those gaps, or the students are never going to be able to get to the 3.0. Now, thinking about it, I'm a second grade teacher. I have 20 students in my classroom. All 20 students might have different missing pieces. So as a teacher, I have to be able to identify, where are my kids? What are they missing? How can I fill that in for you, and another one in for you, and another one in for you, so that we can all eventually get to that grade level? And then, by the way, Lupe over there is an accelerated learning, so I can't bore the heck out of her, and I need to extend for her, right? And this is what our teachers are doing every day in their classrooms. And they need to have the resources and materials to do that. So we're very happy about what our selection was with Math and You. And like I said, the teachers have so far been very favorable about having those at their fingertips, so they're not searching far and wide or developing. Many of our teachers would actually make their own resources for their kids. So the other thing that we've had that I didn't put on here is we also have had Exact Path in our district. So you've probably heard that, but that is an online program that teachers are using, like in their What I Need time, that also assesses where students are in there and fills in those gaps, so the teachers can have students working independently, where they work with small groups and then shuffle the kids out and around. But there's a lot of planning and preparation that goes on with our teachers. So all of those things being put together and having those things all online is why we feel, again, going back to having the proficiency scales to drive that instruction. And by the way, those of you who've been around long enough to know all the work that we've done through Race to the Top, this is why I always call this our Race to the Top 2.0, right? The first time we went through, we took the state standards, we ourselves as a district took and deconstructed those standards, and we came up with our own learning targets, et cetera. And we did that work. What we found that happened organically as we were working through that is we lowered the standard. So we would take math and we would break that down for second grade math, and we'd say, oh, everything at this 2.0 is what the students need to know and be able to do to get to that 3.0, and then we'd spend the entire year focusing on the 2.0 and never getting the kids, teaching the kids at the 3.0. So we lost a lot of the level of rigor that was going on in the instruction when we did it ourselves. So when we brought in the proficiency scales and worked with the Marzano team to make sure we had something that our teachers could anchor that on, instead of us taking them and deconstructing them and pulling them apart, right? Help keep us on track of where that grade level was. So again, we're showing that work. We are actually 4 years, well, actually 5, because we had a whole planning year. We're like in 5 years into this planning and the work that we've done in math. The reason why I say that is because we're not that far ahead in ELA. So if you go ahead and go to the next one. We have started the work in the language arts, but math is a lot more linear. It's a lot more, easier for people to understand and grasp. When it comes to English language arts, there's a lot of it that it's harder to see if a student is processing what a student's processing in their head to put it on paper, especially in younger grades. So we've been struggling with English language arts, to be honest with you. And then also, the proficiency scales we purchased, and again, worked on with Marzano Partners, are aligned to the NVACS, or Common Core State Standards, so the Nevada Academic Content Standards, which are aligned to Common Core State Standards. But really, all the research that's been coming out and some of the bills that were just passed, actually in this last session, talks about the science of reading. That's what SOR stands for, by the way, science of reading. And so we are finding that we are having to do some shifting right in the middle of building the plane, which we hate doing, because we know if you actually were to build a plane while you were flying it, you would crash to the ground and everyone would perish. That's the way it feels like what's happening in English language arts, to be honest with you, because we now made this shift to the science of reading, and we're having it's going to be good in the long run, but in the meantime, it's been a little messy. So right now, the past year, we had rubric assessments that our teachers utilized that were aligned to the proficiency scales that we currently have that are aligned to the NVACs. It's going to have to be redone, like I said, to bring in the science of reading components. We did hire this past year a Title I funded literacy coordinator at the district level. So each of our elementary schools use their Title I funds for what we call instructional coaches / literacy coaches at each of their schools. That's what all 6 of our elementary schools are using, if not all of their Title I funds, a good portion of their Title I funds to fund. And then we have a district literacy specialist to support them. And that's new, and she leads this work, and that's Pam Calberthwaite. So in addition to doing that this year, there's a lot of professional development that's been going on in our district. And again, for those of you who followed the legislative session, don't remember which bill it was, but one of them just passed requiring districts to provide 460? SB 460, thank you. I don't memorize those numbers, he has them. SB 460 that is going to require districts to provide, I think it's 3 or 4, is it 3? 3 days, 3 full days of literacy training to teachers starting in, we hope, the following school year. So not this upcoming school year because we don't have plans for that to happen, being that it just passed. But in the meantime, we have trained teachers, and our schools have trained teachers, and many of our principals, like Dr. Ward behind me, have been trained in PRESS, which is a research-based framework for reading intervention in elementary grades. We've been doing PRESS in our district, I believe, for 3 years now. We have done training for Orton Gillingham, which is a research-based approach to teach students with dyslexia. This is the first year we did that. Orton Gillingham training is a 5-day training with ongoing monthly supports beyond that. And we sent a team of teachers through that this past year. We have another group going through this upcoming year. And then we also have letters training going on, which is language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. We have one cohort of approximately 38 teachers. Our teachers, just so you know, we did pay for the training for them, but they are doing it 100% on their own time for the letters. The Orton Gillingham we were able to do during the first week of school last year. Terrible timing, but it was the only time we could actually get the training scheduled. And PRESS was done during school district time, but for our letters teachers, we paid for the training. They have all dedicated their time, their own time to do that. So we have 38 teachers that have been trained on that. And then our district literacy coordinator, Pam Calberthwaite, is actually going to training now to be a trainer of trainers so that we can bring that training in-house. It's not inexpensive. You can see it that her training alone is costing almost $34,000. But we will then have an in-house trainer to train our teachers. So we have a good head start on this before the state ever decided to pass the bill and say that we needed to do it. So I think kudos to our schools and to our professional learning team within the district because we've gotten ahead of this and we're really positioned well. However, there's still a lot of work to be done, and again, it's now legislated. So we'll continue to work on that. And I do feel that once we get all of these pieces in place, language arts will come alongside math, and we'll start to see the same types of gains we're seeing in math. Again, we're seeing little gains, just not as extensive as math. And I think, again, that's because we do have the scales and we do have our teachers understanding what grade level rigor looks like and having intervention supports and resources. But once the whole system is lined, then I think it's just, it just makes it much easier for teachers to actually effectively plan, right? So it takes some of that work off their load so that they can spend more time diving into their students and knowing their students and being able to plan for their individual students. So that's the work that we've been doing for several years, and that's the work that honestly we'll probably never quite be done with because it's just, we learn and we evolve. But so far we're very excited about the growth that we've been seeing rebounding after COVID.
I have a question on the trainer. What is the timeline for Pam to become a trainer?
So she's already gone through level 1 training. She finished her level 1 training, I believe it was like the first week in May. So she has to go that second level of the second group of training, which we have her. She'll be going through this coming school year, I think first semester. The way it's offered is it's offered like 4 or 5 times throughout the year. So we just have to narrow down her schedule when she's able to go, and then we send her. But she did finish the first stage, I guess, if you will, of training. But now she has the second one to go through, and then she'll be a certified trainer. And they have to be certified to be able to access the resources and materials, and then bring it to our teachers.
Well, thank you for being proactive and getting that started. Sounds like we are ahead of the game. Yeah, thank you. And thanks, and it's probably another initiative of yours.
Well, I have a lot of help because our elementary principals are very vested, of course, in making sure that their schools are successful. So honestly, press was grassroots. I like to say that because that was definitely not a Tasha thing. It was organically started at the elementary schools until it was like, no, the district is going to adopt this and do this all 6 schools. And I was like, okay, we're going to do that. That sounds great. In the meantime, also, we are looking for, and we're working on new instructional resources for K-5 ELA as well. I mean, so that's something that, we're in the works from. So too, the same kind of concept is we want to be able to have we want our teachers not to spend their time or their own personal money buying stuff or looking for things. We want to make sure that they have a guaranteed and viable curriculum that's available for them within district.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Mike, okay.
Tasha for her leadership, obviously. She's done a tremendous job for us. And then I just want to highlight what you were saying, Tasha, about the struggles with those proficiency skills with ELA. And it's kind of the same argument I made during a state board meeting when we were looking at assessments for Read by Grade 3. And reading and language acquisition is so complex that there really isn't a standardized test that's truly going to tell you if a kid's going to read without some form of assessment and input from teachers with boots on the ground. And so I think taking the time to really build the knowledge base of our teachers and giving them the skills to truly know a child's reading abilities is huge. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mike.
Definitely.
So quick question, because, most times you do a pre and a post, right? You go in and you do a pre-questionnaire, and then you attend training and you do the post. Why do we do the winter? So I feel like the fall is the pre, the spring is the post testing of maps. So why do we do the winter testing?
Other than it's required by the state, I'm not real sure, except for the fact that I think they want benchmark assessments more frequently. Really, if we were going to benchmark effectively without over-testing kids, because you don't want to keep testing kids to test kids, right? We're really wanting to benchmark more like on the every 3 to 4 week time frame. But it doesn't have to be a test. I'm not saying that. When I'm saying it's really a lot of it can be teacher observation assessment, right? To assess, are the students learning what we are teaching them? But yeah, I mean, I think it's just falling in line with the fact that under Read by Grade 3 legislation, we have to do the MAP assessment. We have to administer it 3 times a year. And so, I mean, from a standpoint of whether or not it's beneficial to our schools, I'm probably not the best person to ask. Dr. Ward would be better, but I think we really use our spring to spring scores more within our district than really those winter scores. The fall scores, you get a lot of learning regression during the summer, right? So those fall scores are always sad. I mean, compared to if you're looking at where the kids were in the spring, and then looking at where they're in the fall, you have learning regression. So we have a tendency to look a lot from spring to spring to see where they were last spring, where they are this spring. And that's the most useful, I think, that our schools are using really beyond knowing where they're at the beginning of the year. So I agree, Molly. I mean, in terms of just testing to test, I don't know that the winter assessment score is the most important thing. I mean, if we were to give instructional time back to schools, that would definitely be where we'd want to do it.
That's what is an observation, but yeah, I mean, I understand that it is by state. Maybe we can talk to somebody. Okay, but you know what I would find very interesting with these the MAP scores, the spring by spring, would be if you could ever, within your database, I'm not quite sure you could ever do this, but tie in attendance to the red and the orange. I would love to be able to see,
We've actually done that, and we can provide that for you.
That would be, because
And it's what
we
you
know
would think, but it's
attendance is an issue.
validating.
Right, we know attendance is an issue, and it would be really kind of, I think, beneficial to see where we are with that.
And
we see
we
that.
actually have the same data too at the high school level, looking at the ties of attendance to GPA, and it's exactly what you would think as well.
And then I know for special education, there's accommodation. So MAP testing usually takes what? 2 partial days, right? 2 or 3? 2 hours, 2 days, or 1 day? Okay. so
2
it's-
hours over a
three
3-day period of time. There's 3 portions to the
Right.
assessment.
And so feedback that I have heard is that it just really is a lot on a special education student, because it might take them all week. And it's just extremely draining, and I don't know how you would ever deal with that, or, I'm not quite sure.
Yes, unfortunately, those assessments, we're required to assess all students unless it's written in the IEP that they're not assessed, and the only way they can be excused from those assessments is if they're like in an alternative standards program. So, I agree. It's a hard situation. It's the same thing for our English language learners, our newcomers who come in, and just until they learn the language and they're being assessed in a language that they don't naturally speak, it's a challenge. Absolutely.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, thank you for all this work. Natasha, I know your retirement is approaching, and you're working so hard in helping with all these reports, so we appreciate you. Okay, very good. Thank you both. Agenda item number 13, approval of consent agenda, and this is for possible action.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Okay, motion by trustee Barner and second by trustee Roberts. Any board discussion? See none. Any public comment? See none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then agenda item number 14, informational items, and this is for discussion only. No action will be taken. Any comments or questions? No, none? Okay. And agenda item number 15, board reports, board member comments, and this is for information only. We will start off with Nevada Association of School Board, NASB update. Trustee Barner?
Yeah, I put my notes away because I didn't. I do have some. Today, I asked Renee to send out kind of an update on the legislative session
For that,
bills
yep.
that were submitted. And so everybody should have got that in their email. And it'll tell you which bills died, which ones were passed. So it's interesting reading.
Thank you. That's
And-
very helpful. We'll definitely read that.
And then the only other thing really is that planning is ongoing for the 2025 annual conference. So there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes. We're still looking for sponsors, additional sponsors. There's quite a few, but if anybody knows of an organization that may want to help sponsor the conference, let me know and I'll pass it on. It's going to be at the same place last year, the Silver Legacy. No, not Silver Legacy, GSR.
In Reno, okay.
Yeah, in Reno. Pardon? Yeah,
Oh, there
yeah,
you go.
right. That's what happens, yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, and that's my report for NASB.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to just go ahead and do your report for your board report?
I do. For Fritz Elementary, we talked a little bit about absenteeism, so this is kind of a neat thing here. Principal Brown would like to thank the Fritz families for helping to reduce their chronic absenteeism rate from 17% to 7.5% this school year. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That is great.
They are very excited about the results, and he says they could not have been this successful without their Fritz families, everybody making sure the kids came to school. So good job there. And then for Boardwalk Bray, Principal Raquetta's thinking about the new school year, and she wanted everybody to give everybody an advance notice that there will be a parents' meeting on August 11th, 12th, and 13th at 6 p.m., and they'll be held in the multi-purpose room on August 19th. And this is where parents can find out their child's homework teacher or homeroom teacher and hear about all the exciting things that's going to be happening at Boardwick. And that's my report.
Thank you so much, Trustee Gardner and Trustee Roberts.
Yes, from Dr. Ward, they had their Avid Summit, and it was a huge success. 23 teachers completed 19 hours of professional learning and cultural building over the course of 2 days. It was a very engaging and unique experience. And then I just want to add a big thank you, because I forgot, with the PTA's Fun Run fundraiser, their goal, I believe, was at 5,000, and they exceeded that over 6,000. So amazing job. Thank you, families. Thank you, community, everybody who participated.
Wonderful, thank you. Trustee Walt?
So I don't have anything for Empire Elementary School, but last Monday, as part of my duties as a school board member, I am on the Parks and Rec Commission. And so we had, on June 16th, we had a joint meeting with the Open Space Advisory Committee and the Parks and Rec Commission. So there was a few things that we discussed and had presentations on. So first, the park ranger presented all of the different activities that they're doing within Carson City. And I would first and foremost, at the last meeting we had with them, I had mentioned last year if he could possibly reach out to the schools, and this is John Costello, to reach out to the schools and, try to get the students more involved. And he did. And so I would like to thank all of those schools or classrooms, teachers that invited him in, because it was very successful. So I would, like to thank anybody, and I would encourage anybody who's listening, or principals as well. It's an ongoing park ranger program that they have, and they get out there, they get the parks, the rivers, and they do different educational learning. And so, and they can bring it into the schools if we have funding and we can't do field trips, they can bring it in. So I would encourage you to reach out, because John and his team are extremely eager to get in there and get it done. We also had a presentation on the Carson City Trails by Greg Berggren, and I have been here for, I don't know, well, a lot of years. So for, 31 years I've been here, and I had no idea about our trail system. And it's what we found at this presentation is it really is kind of underutilized. But it's underutilized by demographics in Carson City, which is families. It's families and students. And so I asked him if he would possibly look in, consider doing something with the schools as well. So he gave me a task, and I'm going to read it. Sorry, I have too many open things going on. But the task was then to, kind of get back to him on, what would it look like? Would it be the possibility of field trips, going to the trails, but or learning where they are? He comes into the schools and, shows the students where all of the trails are, kind of like this is how it is. But I don't know that it would go from a student to a family, to the parents who are actually going to get the students there. So I would maybe, look at if there isn't a possibility when schools do family nights or family activities, that we ask, that somebody from the trails, Greg or somebody from his team participates, so then they can show, because it really is remarkable, the trails that we have throughout Carson City. It's really, so he was wondering, would it be a presentation in a school, classroom, outdoor field trip, whatever that would look at. So I would, if I could get some suggestions to get back to him, that would be great. I would appreciate that as well. And then, as part of my day job, I was asked by the Carson City Health and Human Services to lead what's called the CHIP group, which is a Community Health Improvement Plan. They call it their CHIP. And it's to go over the 2022 Community Health Needs Assessment. And yet, meeting is a quad county. So we held our first meeting on the second Thursday in June. I think it was like June 12th. And the community then comes together, and it's not just seniors, it's anybody who has a barrier with transportation. And we know that some of our families do. How do some of our kids get to medical appointments after school? How do they get to the dentist after school? And so I would really appreciate, and I don't know who to reach out to, but so in this meeting is Douglas County, Carson, Lyon, and Story. And so it's Jack Bus, it's DART, it's us, obviously, it is the hospital was involved, NDOT's involved, school districts are involved. So if there isn't somebody I could get involved in that. And so what this is then is getting data to show where are we and where do we need to be? What are the barriers? What are the struggles, that our families are having? I, speak on for the seniors, and then, spoke a little bit as a school board member, because I'd love to be able to see some transportation for students to get to extracurricular activities after the school day. The bus drops them off at home, but, if there's only one car and dad has it, how are these students participating? And so that was something that was brought up as well, Boys and Girls Clubs there. So if we can do that, I would greatly appreciate it on that, because I think it could be valuable on that as well. And then lastly, I need to, and it's going to be in the paper, but I would like to take this opportunity to invite everybody to look up in the sky on the 4th of July at the fireworks show, because it is a free show. There is parking up at Upper Centennial. There's free parking at Lower Centennial as well. And so the fireworks show will start at 9:30 on July 4th, Friday. Up at Centennial, though, there are no trailers, RVs, camping, open flames, glass bottles, pets, no parking within the fallout zone, which we will have barricaded. And so I would ask that people enjoy, the patriotic holiday in which we celebrate, and please be responsible as well. But there is a lot of free parking. I'd like to emphasize that.
Lots of good stuff. Thank you, Molly. Appreciate that. Okay, for me, I just want to remind the trustees to please write those letters of nominations for our wonderful staff that we want to nominate for the NASB awards. And I believe Ms. Cortez sent out an email to all of us late this afternoon. And then Superintendent Fielding also sent another reminder. So please look at those emails. And if you have not signed up to write letters of nominations, please do so. Help us with that task if you would, please. I appreciate it. And then also we have Vice President Walker on the phone joining us for the meeting, as you all heard. But I also need to ask him for his report. Vice President Walker?
Yeah, for a minute I was like, what was I supposed to do? I don't have a report tonight, so thank you so much.
You don't have a report?
I do not have a report this evening.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I just want to make sure that I did not forget you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Then we will move on to agenda item number 16, and that's request for future agenda topics. Do we have any requests for future items?
So we're not going to have the first meeting in July, so the second meeting would be, what is that, July what? What's it?
So,
22nd.
so yes, correct. So our next meeting, our next board meeting will be on the 22nd. That is correct.
Okay, so then I would ask if we could get, like another funding line item and have that presented as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any additional items? Don't see any? Okay. Agenda item number 17, adjournment. Thank you so much, everyone. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You